Everyone, and welcome back. We are into our last couple of sessions on today. And first of all, we have Imogen Rabone, and she's here to talk about trees. She's well known as the founder and coordinator of the Trees on the Land project, which is a cross-border initiative here to establish young native trees across the 32 counties. She's particular interest in tree cover, woodland establishment, and agroforestry of all kinds, particularly in wood pasture. So we're going to hear a quick presentation from Imogen now. So welcome, Imogen, and then you can kick off in your own time. Thank you.
Go ahead, Imogen.
Oh, hello. Hi. Am I? Sorry, I couldn't hear a word. Then are they talking away, or am I?
Sorry, fire away, Imogen. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. I couldn't hear anything at all except moving faces. Thank you very much for having me, Sean and Suzanne, and hi, Jim. I can see that you're there. My name is Imogen Rabone, and I'm the founder and coordinator of the Trees on the Land project, which some of you might have come across in Ireland and in Northern Ireland. We're a 32 counties project, so you may or may not have come across us over the years. I'm going to talk a little bit about the origins of the project and what we sort of aim to achieve with our tree planting schemes, and also how farmers can join the schemes. I think you've probably heard from Jim a little bit about putting trees onto farms by way of agroforestry. And to a certain extent, this project's quite a good way of getting hold of some trees for the farm if you're looking at different ways to add trees and looking at sustainable solutions. Then we're here to help. So hopefully that'll help. I just realised I haven't shared my. Let me just share my slideshow background thing if that works. Lordy, maybe it doesn't work. I'll leave that. Never mind. You can all just look at my nice map of Ireland behind. So the Trees on the Land project was conceived about 12 years ago, and developed really in response to the forestry programme at the time, and indeed as it still is, which obviously concentrates on large areas of forestry, putting significant chunks of land under forestry permanently, and usually with conifers, and that's a sort of permanent change to agricultural land. It's in theory gone from agricultural production. And there was also a gap at the time between the REPS and the FEPS schemes and the new AOS schemes and GLOS and all of that. There were very few farm schemes for farmers to be able to avail of trees through those schemes. So there was a kind of gap. It was forestry or nothing. And I saw a need really to look more at tree cover. And this comes up an awful lot when I'm talking about trees, whether I'm talking to farmers or landowners. It's really the definitions of tree planting and ways to plant trees. I think when people think about trees, whether it's through farming systems or just out in the general public, people, especially in Ireland, tend to think about trees means forestry. It means wall-to-wall trees. It means a big block of land, and it means permanent tree cover. And we kind of we looked at a different way of looking at tree cover. So we use the words tree cover, and we define that as everything that isn't forestry. So we look at hedgerows, shelter belts, parkland, wood pasture. Obviously, agroforestry in all of its guises often comes under the sort of definition of tree cover. It's often not forestry in big significant areas. Orchards, avenues, lines of trees, pockets of trees, little copses, corners of fields, and even scrubland all come under tree cover. So I spend an awful lot of time working with, whether it's on the farming side or on the sponsor side with businesses, trying to explain that when you think about trees, you really don't have to think about forestry at all. And in fact, the project has developed that we do everything but forestry. We're very much not an afforestation project. So everything you can think of, all the hedgerows, shelter belts, and things like that are very useful in a farm scenario. That's what we do best. And we really, that was how the project began to develop. So we started out, I think we're probably running into our 11th or 12th planting season now. My view has always been that a field isn't a field without a hedge around it and a few trees in it. And sadly, I guess that's a pretty outdated view, or maybe it's considered to be super modern, but it often isn't the case. So that's my vision and what I'm hoping to bring to all of you and anyone who wants to take part in the project. I'm from a farming background and very luckily from an area where there are a lot of trees and hedges, and the management of woodlands and hedgerows and trees on the farm are very much a part of the farming year. So they sort of come and they go as different seasons of the year. And they're as much part of that annual cycle of the seasons and the jobs to be done as the lambing and the calving and everything else that goes on. So it's to me, a farm is a farm with trees, and a farm without trees is sort of missing something. So it's a little bit of my own background. So we started the project out 10, 11, 12 seasons ago, offering bags of 50 trees to farmers. I guess we were sort of told not to expect much, but we were inundated that first year. I think we had 3,000 inquiries in the first few weeks, and a lot of farmers sort of took part and had their few trees, and off they went and planted them, and then loads came back and said, can we have some more for next year? So we very quickly developed into an annual project, and really what we're serving is anything from a simple, the classic is where you've got a hedgerow on your farm and there's a few gaps in it, and that's possibly what we do the absolute most of. It's not very glamorous, but where people are infilling broken gappy hedges that could do with a few trees treading in along the row, and that's probably where we were born from, was giving people little packs of trees to go and patch up their hedgerows. Very, very simple. And similarly, putting little groups of 5 or 10 trees into the corner of a paddock that needed a bit of shelter, and then graduating up to bigger shelter belts and more ambitious projects where we're putting in kilometres of hedgerow onto particular farms, or restoring all of the hedgerows, extensive networks of shelter belts, big grid systems of field trees, and all the way up to much more fancy designed agroforestry type stuff. So it was very humble beginnings with very small scale stuff, but very sort of considered very handy for farmers who were looking to just get hold of a few trees to do these small jobs around the farm without too much fuss, and really putting the power in the hands of the landowner. You all know your land, you know what's wet, you know what's dry, you know what's exposed, and allowing the farmer that little bit of control and respectful sort of, what's the word, sort of giving you this respectful free rein to get on with it, which I suppose was the vision. So we have these very, very hardy native mixes. That's the idea, is that if you're looking for hedging trees or woodland trees or coppice trees, we send mixes of trees. They're all native, they're all grown in Ireland, they're sort of used to, fine for organic farms and all different schemes and things. They're all certified and can be, we can always share certs for them. So the mixes are developed to go in and grow away happily. And they allow, I suppose, farmers to not have to think too much when you're going out and you want to go and buy some trees. You've either got to go to a nursery and look for potentially imported trees, or you've got to go and buy in bulk, and really to buy in bulk you're going to be looking at single species. So the mixes, the idea was to serve that kind of demand for ready-made mixes of trees that you could fling in the ground, and that they'd go off hopefully like a rocket and grow really well. So that was the sort of initial idea, with these bags of 50 trees going out. We've grown a lot in the last few years, and probably if you have heard of us or come across us or even taken part in the project, it will have been in more recent years. So we're now looking looking after about between 1,000 and 1,500 projects a year, of which about 70 or 80% are farm projects. We do a lot of schools projects and community groups. We have gardens taking part, and councils and sports clubs and all sorts of other areas, but really the main focus of the project is with farmers and smallholders. So that's really the whole project is developed and orientated to serve the farming community and to fill that gap where if you want to put trees on the land, you don't want to go down the big forestry route and cover up hundreds or tens of acres. The idea was to fill that gap that at the time was very much lacking, and I think probably that gap does still exist, although obviously all of the new acre schemes and things are coming through now, so we'll see how they go. We've done an awful lot with agroforestry and farm type design. We've done a lot of farm plans for different farmers, and we have anything up from groups taking sort of 20 trees all the way up to 20,000 trees per project, and we can either let the smaller projects to a certain extent, we let them get on with it, putting in just a few trees here and there. But for those more ambitious projects where the farmer is more interested to go into detail, we can provide a full advisory and visiting and design service. So it's nearly anything from one to 10,000, we say, is the start point for farm projects. So it's very, very open, and we want to really convey that to the farming community that whether you want a handful of trees to fill a gap in a hedge, or whether you're interested in going the full works with agroforestry and full farm plans, whether you're livestock or tillage, we're very, very broad-minded, and there's always, my view is that there's 1,000 ways to plant a tree, and there's any number of ways of incorporating tree cover into a farm, without, obviously, the key in most cases, not all cases, is to avoid impacting too much on productive acreage. So that's really where the bread and butter of the hedgerows and the shelter belts come in. They don't take up a whole lot of space, but they can provide huge services to the farm, in terms of obviously shelter and shade and soil protection and keeping ground dry. With all the rain we've had, Jesus, keeping the ground a little bit drier when we need to keep livestock out for as long as possible, reducing housing time. All of those kind of benefits can be obviously woven in and put very much on the table in terms of designing for farms. So that's sort of the kind of garbled crash course in what we do and why. And we're not a very big team. We're a small organisation with a cracking team of people. We're all very farm orientated. So the idea is that we're really here to help, whether it's on the phone, by email, on a video call, or in person on visits. We're all very farm minded and really here to try to figure out what suits the farm and the running of that farm in terms of tree planting, and to provide a service that starts with planning and development and finishes up with a long sort of open-ended support. So if things are going wrong, we're absolutely there to talk it through and figure out how to get them to go right. We've seen it all, cattle breaking into fences and eating every single tree on the place. We're not too worried about that. These things happen. So we can absolutely help with making sure that things can be set right. So in terms of how Sean had asked me to run through really how different farms can join in and be part of the project. The timing of this is dreadful, because we've actually just closed up all of our applications for this year are now closed for this coming winter. So it would be for next, all of what I'm talking about now is looking at next season. But ordinarily, we're open to all farmers, smallholders and landowners in the 32 counties. So it's absolutely open, and really there's no holding too small. So anything from people with an overgrown garden and a couple of pigs and some veg patches, all the way up to big estates and big farms or multi-farm projects. We're very much open to absolutely everything in between. And we try to make that very clear that the door is open no matter how big or small you are as a farm. We open each year. There's very much an annual cycle, as with everything to the project. So we open our applications in August. Anybody who wants to be told, ding, ding, we're open, we're ready, we send out notifications to our big mailing list. So if you're keen to be told when we're open for applications, it's just simply send in an email to us and we'll put you on the mailing list for that notification. We open in August and we close in October, and we sort of can't say enough to get people to try to apply as soon as the applications are open. This year we had to close them early. We were oversubscribed hugely, which is obviously great to be so busy, but we hate letting people down. We really hate disappointing people. So if you're looking to do an application, get it in as soon as you possibly can. Once you're in, and then that way there's no sort of mucking around towards the deadline. It's very much first come, first served. Although actually farmers aren't the worst, it's the schools that are always the ones at the very, very last minute of the deadline, which makes me laugh. Each year the schemes are a little bit different. We do sort of chop and change things a little bit. So it's always worth not assuming that what was last year is going to be next year. But in general, there are free trees for farms. That's the guts of it. We provide trees at no charge for farm projects. So there is no cost, no hidden charges, nothing to sort of particularly worry about, certainly no payments to take part. We have previously charged application fees, we've charged tree pack fees, and again, it changes every year. So don't assume it will always be that way, but for the last few years and hopefully for the next few years, certainly all trees are free to farms. Numbers are unlimited, a little bit, as I was saying before, anything from 1 up to about 10,000 trees for a farm project is fine. And I've just been working on applications this morning for farms looking for 5 and 6 trees, and then a few looking for 25,000 plus. So that diversity and breadth is absolutely there. We're here to listen to your story and figure out what we can do to help. If you're looking for proper forestry, so anything over 1/4 of an acre in one block, or sort of reality, in sort of technical, in reality, anything over a couple of acres in one block. So if you're looking to put any significant land areas under proper forestry, then we would usually redirect you to a local forester to look at the government grant schemes for afforestation, because as I already said, we're not really an afforestation project. We do have the scope and we do help farmers with afforestation applications, but certainly that's not what we're here for in general. So if you're looking at proper forestry, we will probably redirect you. But the application system is very simple, and we've tried to rig it up that it's the sort of thing that you sit down of an evening, make a pot of tea, and quietly work through. The process is fairly logical, so it talks you through the different stages and what you need to know, what you should and shouldn't be doing, where you should and shouldn't be planting trees. It talks you through the different tree mixes and the structure of the different packs, so that hopefully, and sure, we never know how many people actually read the notes properly, but if you are to read everything through in the right order, you should come through the system feeling fairly confident about what you want and what you need, and having picked up a few tips and hints along the way. All of the trees that are in these schemes are fully native. They are certified native seed. They're seed collected in Ireland from Irish trees. They are grown in Ireland. So that's something that we get asked an awful lot: are the trees imported and so on? No, they're not. And that can limit quite a lot what we have available year on year. So we're very much limited to what's good, what's in season, a bit like buying food. And that can be kind of limited down. Some years we don't have much blackthorn for hedges. Some years we might be short on rowan for our woodland packs. It really varies quite a lot. I think this winter coming, we're going to be fairly short of oak, as a couple of years ago there was very little oak seed falling. So it swings and roundabouts a bit, but we've we always seem to manage to make up pretty good diverse mixes for everything, whether it's a hedgerow pack, might be hawthorn base with a bit of blackthorn, bit of rowan, hazel, crabapple, sometimes some cherry and oak and things in there. There are standard trees. The woodland packs are usually based on pioneer species, so they'd be often a mixture of alder and birch with whitethorn in there, and then with an oak kind of overstory, so looking to create pockets of oak woodland ultimately, and then some diverse species. So often we'll pop in some Scots pine to put in a little group for diversity for the squirrels perhaps, and then crabapple, rowan, and other odds and ends, really very much what's available that year. So we try to keep all of the packs very, very diverse, so that they're doing their job. What will be happy there and what will grow well varies, and that these often, if one thing doesn't like it, something else will really enjoy it, and you've got that diversity for the biodiversity. So the birds got plenty to feed on. There's flowers, there's stuff for pollinators in there. All of the packs have some flowering trees in, and then fruiting trees to feed birds and the mice and the critters. And sure that most of the packs are also suitable once the trees are up and away. We absolutely advocate for people, letting the animals get in and browse a bit, or get up to hedgerows and browse. So there's goodness in there for livestock as well. But yeah, so the application system, you read your notes, you get to filling out the form. The form is absolutely not designed to catch anyone out. It's the sort of form that you should be able to fill out in one go. We do ask for maps and sketches of roughly what you plan. It doesn't have to be too perfect, but we do ask for fairly simple outline of what you're intending to do and where you wanted to put it. And we get a lot of back of the envelope drawings or simple Google Maps and things like that are absolutely fine. So nothing too technical. And then that's the sort of first section of the application. And the second part then is that we work through every application as it comes in, and we will ring you up and do what we sort of loosely call them interviews, but they're very, very informal phone call. We talk to every landowner and we talk through your application with you and ask you questions. Sorry, I've got something in my eye. Questions about how you looking to, will you be fencing or using tree guards? We talk through all manner of details about tree guards, what will work, what won't work, what fencing will and won't work, the different ways that you're planning to plant trees, really to get a good idea of everything. And sometimes we have farms coming to us who really are quite green. They might not have ever planted any trees on the farm. They don't know how these things work. They might not know how to even plant a tree, or what would appropriate fencing be, or management. And sometimes we have very competent groups coming that already know pretty well what they're up to. So again, the purpose of that interview and chat is to just sort of unpick the application a little bit, get to know you and your project and what you're doing, and really to make sure that what you're planning is appropriate and sensible, and that it's going to work hopefully, and that the trees will grow. So it's a sort of two-part application. One part is the form, the second part is the interview, and then we'll often send someone out to visit, have a chat, have a walk and a talk if that's needed. That usually depends on scale. So if you've got a lot of trees going in the ground, we're more likely to send someone out to visit and meet you and really get a handle on what you're planning. If you're looking for 20 trees to patch up a hedge, chances are we won't be coming out to visit. But the whole team is absolutely very approachable, and we've all sort of been there, done that, and seen everything that could possibly go wrong. We've seen it, so nothing will surprise us, and we're not worried about things being posh and smart. So it's very much sort of tree orientated, getting the trees in the ground. So once your application is in, we've done the interview, we're not a selective or competitive project. So if you put an application in with us that's been accepted, we are going to give you some trees, hopefully, as long as your plans aren't completely mad. It's not something that people have to wait around biting their nails wondering whether they've got a place. We'll always make sure that everybody gets some trees. And those trees go out, mostly our deliveries go out January, February. So we ask people if they're carving or anything late January, early February, please put a note on your application, and we do our absolute best to make sure that we jig the flow of the deliveries out, to avoid peak times of lambing, calving, and all of those things, so that no one's under pressure to plant trees when they really need to be doing something else. The trees come out to you. COVID caused chaos with our deliveries, so we have sort of double system for this year, and probably for future years, where trees are either going out in very smart courier boxes with sort of branded tape and labeled trees in transit and all of that, or they may well be delivered locally for you to collect. And we used to run a lot of super collection points all across the island where people kind of pop down and fetch your trees from the local co-op or a local garage or even someone's garden shed or a farm. There were all manner of different places distributing trees for us. So trees will be in your hands usually late January, early February, ready for planting. We're a self-plant scheme, so it's over to you a little bit to get the trees planted yourselves as quickly as you can, so that they're not hanging around. Depending on the scale of the planting, we can always help. We often have quite keen groups of volunteers and people who are delighted to come out and help with planting. You can bring in contractors if you prefer, or bring in the family, bring in farm employees. It varies how people get it done. But obviously, it's if you're planting 20 trees, you get out with a spade and do them yourself. If you've got thousands of trees going in the ground, it's a little bit more of an operation. But ultimately, we provide the trees and you get on and plant them. Similarly with the management. Now, as I'd already said, we're very much on the line. So any queries at all, however silly they might seem, we're here to answer questions and queries. But in terms of the basic management, that's for you to keep an eye on the trees, to walk around them, make sure they're not being eaten or just dying of drought or all the various things that can kill a tree. Any disasters in terms of survival, we're always ready to help with restocking. So if you do have some trees that don't make it, we'll always send you another back for next year. The strike rate of the trees we send out is really high. We expect 90% plus ordinarily, even if they've been sort of slightly abused, we still expect 90% plus of trees to survive. So if you're seeing failures, then we want to know about it, and we'd rather you rang us up and told us than sat and sort of suffered in silence. Even if the cattle have broken in and eaten more, we'd rather know and see you set right than not. The trees, once you have them and once they're in the ground, they become your property. I'll explain a little bit about how we fund the project. And the intention really, the main kind of turning point of the whole project is that we expect that the trees go in the ground permanently. And that's not an immovable rule, but we hope that there's good intention in there, that people are planting trees for the right reasons, they want them there, and that they've got an eye to keeping them there permanently. But we do encourage the use of the trees. So thinning, trimming, pruning, coppicing, cutting fodder, cutting and laying hedges, picking fruit, grafting more apple trees, growing for future timber. All of these things are absolutely encouraged. We're not expecting anyone to put a big fence around the trees and never look at them again or never touch them. They're there to be used, and once they're used in a sustainable fashion with the idea that the ground that they originally cover remains with a tree and tree cover on that same ground. That's the sort of the whole project turns on that concept. It may not be the very same trees there in 200 years time, but we would hope that there might be trees there in future. And then I suppose the question that a lot of farms ask us very quickly is how do we fund the project? We're not funded by any government grants or any big public funding. We really raise a huge majority. We are running a government funded EIP project, but that's different. We're funded through Europe. But the majority of our funding comes through business sponsorship. So we have businesses of all sizes, from small bakery on the corner of the street all the way up to the big multinationals, and they come to us wanting to plant trees, wanting, I suppose, to be able to say that they're planting trees. They've usually got some cash. And in this sort of, it's mad really, 10 years ago, no businesses wanted to cough up even a fiver to plant a tree. And now they're all much, much keener to be seen to be green. But quite a lot of businesses now are looking, they have historically looked abroad to big tree planting schemes where you can plant an awful lot of trees for not too much money. You can offset carbon, you can do this, that, and the other. And they're looking more in the back garden, looking, a lot of Irish companies now really wanting to see their trees go into Ireland and go into local projects. So they come to us with a dream of planting some trees, and often wanting to help out with their planting and come and get their hands dirty, and with money. And we relieve them of that money and match up their sponsorship, if you like, the funding that they can provide. We match what they have to offer with local projects. So often, if you're in County Cork planting, the funding that will be covering the costs of your trees and the costs of the planning and all of the support and the distribution and everything that we offer, that money will have come from a local business in Cork City. In Galway, same, probably come out of Galway City, Limerick, Dublin, Belfast, Derry. It's all, we try to keep everything as local as we can. And then we're very lucky to have some big international sponsors as well, who tend to sort of spread the love all across all of the counties. So we're working quietly in the background to match for each business, to match them to suitable projects on the ground. And beyond that, we do everything we can to make sure that you're all busy farmers. You want to plant your trees and get on with them. You want to see results. The last thing you really want to be doing is wearing a branded T-shirt and schmoozing some sponsor from somewhere. So we look after all of the bits and the bobs and the questions and the silly questions and the ins and the outs and the marketing and the PR and all of that stuff. We take care of that, so that really all you need to worry about as a farmer is making sure that your plans for your tree planting are straight, that you know what you're doing and you're able to get your trees in the ground and mind them. We really make sure that the whole thing goes like clockwork, and the sponsors are essentially just providing funding. On the other side of things, we do an awful lot of work on the ground, making sure that those sponsors are happy and have really quite detailed information about where their money's gone and what trees have gone in the ground and why and what species they are, and all of the details. And we do, for every project that we have sponsored, we do bring our sponsors out to visit sites. But the good thing is that on the application form, we have a big massive tick box that allows you to say whether you'd be delighted to welcome a load of sponsors coming out to have a look and help with the tree planting, or if you'd really rather they stayed away and you didn't have anything to do with them. So that may sound a little bit flippant, but we're all very aware of how hardworking you all are, and similarly how hardworking our businesses are. And we try to keep everything running very, very smoothly. So no farms are being interrupted by the funding kind of process of the project. And it's a question that we often get asked is, oh, Jesus, what do I have to do to make this all work? Do I have to go and pitch to sponsors or anything? And the answer is no, we take care of all of that. So I think that's mostly a kind of crash course in what we do and how we do it, and how, most importantly, how you can apply to us and have some trees. We are absolutely open for queries and inquiries. As I did say, we are really sadly closed for trees for this winter. All of the trees are gone in the flash of the blink of an eye. But any queries, inquiries, we're delighted to talk to anyone. And I probably should give you the website is treesontheland.com. And Sean and Jim and they all have. I think possibly the website was on the notes that you will have. Thank you for listening to me waffle away there, and hopefully you've got a bit of an idea of what we do and why.
Thanks very much, Imogen.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you for your lovely talk. If you can stay for a question or two, Sean, would you like to address anything for Imogen?
Yeah, have we any questions from the floor? Yes, I knew there was.
Yeah. Get a mic over quickly.
And then we're running out over time. So
Yeah, then we need to kick on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one from the floor, yeah.
Does this the first table here?
No, it's just I'm wondering, had the organisation that you represent, have they any input into the new acre scheme? From my memory, from my knowledge of the acre scheme, there's no payment for farmers that want to plant, say, corners of fields with native trees. And on every farm, there are corners of trees that could be used to plant trees. I think it's one of the weaknesses of the scheme, but maybe you should comment on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question, actually. So in answer to your original question, no, we haven't had any direct input into the APIS scheme. We're entirely separate to that scheme. There's no problem with farms taking part in the APIS scheme and then also taking part with us. I don't think there's any crossover issues with that. But no, we haven't been directly involved in the development of that. And I absolutely hear you. It's a real shame if there is no provision for the corners of fields, then it's a big gaping hole in the scheme. A huge amount of what we do does precisely involve that, putting a few trees in the corner of many fields, particularly in tillage fields where vehicles and machinery can't get into the corners, and also in livestock fields where, you know, if you've got livestock running up into the corners, often it is easier just to sort of bevel off the edge of the field and pull your fencing in and leave room. For a few trees, sometimes it's as few as 3 or 5 or even 10 trees in the corner of that field. Sometimes it's a bigger triangle and you might get to 50 or 70 or even 100. But absolutely, it's a really important, very, very simple thing that can be done on nearly any farm, and we absolutely are here to support that. So it's a typical example of what a farmer might apply for through Trees on the Land would be to ask for trees for corners of fields, whether it's 1 corner or 20 corners. Very much what we do.
Okay, brilliant. We're going to have to leave it at that, Imogen, and I'm so sorry, it's just we're running over. We kept you waiting as well. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's absolutely fascinating. I didn't know about your project until now, and I'm sure many people did who were watching. So you may be inundated with requests from Ireland next year. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Imogen.
Thank you.